dodge this.
They know how to manipulate things. They know how to tweak people's emotions. That's what this is all about. I keep saying this goes back to Ferguson, people. Before Ferguson, everybody was like, hey, how come the cops have MRAPs and tanks and shit like that? And they look like, they're running around in Fallujah. Why are the cops running around with BDUs on? Do we really need to have cops with 50 caliber sniper rifles? And then Ferguson happened. And it went from police brutality and martial law and what the hell is up with the tanks and the cops, it's and people realizing that it wasn't about, the cops don't need that to prevent, from getting shot at by angry, black guys that are in gangs or angry Latinos or angry white militias. It's for everybody. It's everybody. It's them versus you because you're not in that big club, as George Carlin said. The same club that they beat you over the head with. Right? You're not in that big club. Well, people started noticing that, and all of a sudden, Ferguson happened. And the media focused on police brutality. They narrowed. You notice how the media and the powers that shouldn't be, they were able to, and this is, you just have to inject the right person or take someone who puts a lie out and twists things, and then the media will twist things around. You notice it went from, the conversation went from cops having MRAPs and tanks, like armored personnel carriers, basically, which could be used as a tank here if they put weapons on it and stuff. So they get an armored personnel carrier, a Bearcat, an MRAP, whatever that the police department happens to get, used military surplus, guns, vests, whatever. They're wearing BDUs. They're running around dressed like they think they're special forces. What was that? I forget what city it was in California. It was before this. It was a couple right before Ferguson. It was not too long before, maybe within a few months. They had an issue going out there, and the cops were running around dressed in fatigues. It was actually hard for even us, like doing radio. I know, like even Joe and I, who are vets, we were looking at pictures trying to figure out who was spec ops guys or National Guard and who was actual cops, and like who wasn't just dressed up like playing soldier, but who was actually, who were their military. And it was hard to tell the difference between who was military and who was a cop. I mean, and there's a lot of them were just, it was the sheriffs and the local cops, but they were dressed like you would think they were in Fallujah. Like, what is this, Phantom Fury 3? Yeah. Anyway, so the argument was, hey, why do these cops have all these guns? And, maybe, are there conspiracy theorists, right? Will there be martial law? Are there, and then it's that police state started to get talked about, and boom, the narrative got changed. It's amazing. You bring up the police state. You could talk about UFOs, aliens, anything like that. You bring up the police state, and the narrative gets changed. Look, ask Jesse Ventura. I know a lot of people have issues with Ventura here or there, but in his conspiracy theory show, they allowed all the other ones to air. The only one that got pulled off of TiVo, and I know because I was one of the first people to report on this, right? Because it just went by. I was streaming it through my computer at the time, and I literally was like, okay, why is it not on? It's not on TV, and it's right there. It's supposed to be on the schedule, and I did a whole video about it years ago. Anyway, why did that episode get pulled? Because it was about the police state and FEMA camps. Doesn't matter if who was in it. Doesn't matter if you feel it was sensationalized for TV. The point is, actually, that episode was pretty telling, and they didn't want it aired for a reason, right? Police state stuff. That seems to be a big no-no. You start to point that out too much, like the reality of that. See, back in the day, they laughed at us. Remember, what's the saying? First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. Well, back when they ignored us and they laughed at us, it was different. Well, now they're fighting us, and the way they fight is through censorship. So police state stuff you can't talk about. Everybody, even the mainstream media, started questioning why cops were driving around in MRAPs and Bearcats and armored personnel carriers and dressed up like G.I. Joe, and suddenly, the narrative became police brutality is synonymous for we don't like black people. So that did two things. One, it got everybody in the black community pissed off because they look, the anger that they have, a lot of it has been stoked, we'll say. They've backed gasoline tankers up to a fire and opened the valves. But that anger is genuine in the black community in that they've been screwed over for a very long time. Now, I know there's I'm not making excuses for anybody or the reason why things are bad here or there, but like, let's be honest. They get preyed on by the cops. The cops in many cities prey on the quote unquote minority communities, whether it be Latinos, blacks, whatever, black people, whatever you want to, African Americans, whatever the term of the day is. They get preyed on by the cops because they're easy to arrest. They can get them in the system, right? No, they bust them for this, that, the other thing. It's true. Now, that, and Russell Means has talked about this, the Native Americans went through that, the Latino community went through that. Well, now middle America, white people are going through it, and that's when they started to wake up and say, hey, wait a minute. And that's when the conversation got switched back from it being a police state to it being, again, it's just racist cops. And it's a racist attitude. Well, I guess maybe it's more of a class attitude. They're taught they're in a special, different class than you and me. They think they're above all of us. It's not, and yes, some of them buy into that base level thinking of, well, I'm better because I'm white, or I'm better because I'm such and such. And racism doesn't just sit with white people. It's not just like white people invented racism. Racism is the belief that your race is better than all other races on the planet. So it doesn't matter what color, what you look like, where you come from, what the pigment of your skin is. If you believe you're better than, or whatever you race, quote unquote, that you are, we're all just the human race. But whatever, say you identify as a white person, or you identify as like the Asian race, and you say, well, Asians are better than all other races on the planet. Well, that's a racist attitude. So it's not just white people that are racist. See, again, that's pushed to cause divide and to create this anger and to stoke a genuine anger in the black community. And then they get them pissed off. Then they turn around and they get the other people, well, blah, 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 these people. I started to see libertarians, well, it's a good thing they have the MRAPs because, look, they're rioting during Ferguson. And I was like, wait, what? And you could see how the other side now, the quote-unquote conservative side, was getting pushed to be on the cops' side. See how that works? So instead of people going, hey, how come you cops are dressed like G.I. Joe? Now it's, well, if you don't like cops, you must be for killing cops, because then cops started to get shot, right? And they started to get killed because there was anger that was being stoked, and there was emotion being stoked, and a lot of propaganda and bullshit that was being put out there, and a lot of logical fallacies. But people, when they're emotional, they're not really paying attention to logic, are they? That's why they use emotion, right? So they were tweaking everybody's emotion. They get everybody pissed off. People start shooting cops. There's a couple crazies out there that, remember, there's 350 million people out there. Somebody's bound to be insane. There's bound to be somebody that's not fully there. And when I say insane, I mean, like, let's say, maybe the term insane isn't the proper term. How about somebody that will buy into, maybe violence is the only answer. They're on that level of thinking. They're that far down into base level thinking that they'll buy into the violence is the only answer, and they do something like that. Then that narrative is used to push the quote unquote other side, the conservative side, right? Oh, look, they want to kill cops. You have to protect cops. Then it's also used to tell the cops, you should be afraid of everybody because everybody wants to kill you. So now the cops have their reaction of fear when you get pulled over or when you have an interaction with them. They're always eyeballing you and worried that you're going to pull something out on them, right? Even if you're in friendly town. See how that works? Do you see how they manipulate all of us? You see how they tweak everybody? It's that simple. And that's what's been going on since Ferguson. It's exactly what's been going on since Ferguson. And they're doing it because they need the country to be divided. A house divided against itself cannot stand, ladies and gentlemen. They understand that. The beauty of this country used to be, and I believe at its core is still there, and that's why they're trying so hard to keep it in this division. The beauty of this country is you could not come in from an outside source by itself and attack. It was tried twice by the British. Didn't work. Almost did, but didn't work. we managed to push them out. For a multitude of reasons, the point is, we did it. And ever since then, that prevailing attitude over the course of time has always been that if an outside source came in, you'd be able to defend against that. And to a large degree, many people would be defending their homeland, quote unquote, right? Would be defending where they come from if a foreign entity was to invade. People like Immortal Technique says in one of his songs, when he's talking, it's in, I forget the name of the song. It's the one where he talks, Bin Laden didn't blow up the projects. I think that's the title of the song. Anyway, he talks about how, I'm going to show you why they say that the insurgents in Iraq, and I'm paraphrasing here, he says, I'm going to show you why they say that they fight for Saddam. Well, that's bullshit, and, totally wrong. And then he explains, he says, look, if a foreign country invaded here, it'd be warfare through Harlem and Washington Heights. I wouldn't be fighting for some rich white banker. I'd be fighting to keep these people out of my hood and out of my neighborhood and push them back. And that's what this country would do. And they understand that. And they fear that. So the only way to bring this country down is from within. You get the country itself to tear itself apart to pieces. And if you understand the way these scumbags and psychos think, you understand that they do things very violently and viciously. They understand how we work. And they're using the basics against us because they're blurring the lines. They're getting us to argue over stupid things. That's not a real issue, and we need to see through this instead of getting caught up in it and emotionally attacking one another. And then it just so happens that the selection year is this year. Oh, isn't that convenient? Isn't that amazing how they got everybody narrowed down to A or B, Democrat or Republican, Hillary or Donald? Interesting.
This is Sparta!